So, welcome, Carlyn Kessler. I'm happy to be able to have the opportunity to talk with you and have our families get to know you a little bit better and know more about you. I'm really curious if you'd share with us your experience growing up as a cellist, how you decided to become a professional musician, and your journey to conservatory. You went to the Cleveland Institute of Music.
Yes, that's right. I started cello when I was in the fourth grade. I actually started on piano when I was 6 years old, and at the time, really was dying to play the piano. And in fourth grade, they had a school orchestra, and so I really wanted to be part of that. And I had actually had just a few lessons on violin. I think the year before was experimenting, and it just wasn't for me, but I really wanted to play a string instrument, and I loved the sound of the cello. So that's how I picked it, and got into it pretty quickly in orchestra. And I think my years of playing piano, and I was already very into music, and music lessons definitely accelerated that process for me, and I think made it easier. So shortly thereafter, I started taking private lessons. And I think for me all along, it was really the collaborative and social aspects of playing cello that really kept me sticking with it. For a few years, I was still a little bit more serious about piano than cello. And when I got to a certain point, I just found that I kind of had to personally pick one that I wanted to prioritize. I ultimately picked cello just because I was able to do so much ensemble playing and chamber music. And that's really what I love doing the most. I was always interested in a lot of different things. I loved school and, academics as well. So it took me probably until mid high school that I decided I definitely wanted to pursue it professionally. At that point, I joined Manhattan School of Music pre-college in my junior year of high school, which was more of a pre-conservatory environment. So I think that combined with also going to summer music festivals with other musicians who were really inspiring and impressive, and kind of led me to that path.
You must have been pretty accomplished, though, by middle of high school to go to Manhattan pre-college.
Yeah, yeah, again, I was involved in a lot of different activities with cello, and it was definitely a big commitment when I started going to MSM. And I'm actually glad that I waited until I did to go. It was every Saturday, and it was very busy those 2 years when I had the full school week. And then I grew up in Connecticut, about a little under an hour from the city. So then Saturday was all at pre-college, and we'd have all our lessons and orchestra and theory classes there. So yeah, but I think that was good preparation for what it would be like at CIM.
And how many teachers did you have as you were growing up?
For cello, when it was at some point through the fourth grade, maybe midway through, when I remember my mom and I were talking and saying, I should probably start having private lessons. I was really into it. So my best friend's dad was a cellist, and I started taking lessons with him. And then the following year, I switched to a local teacher. Her name's Lois Arante, who was known as like the teacher in my county, and a lot of her students went on in music, and I loved studying with her, and I stayed with her all the way up until my junior year of high school, and only left just in order to have the pre-college environment.
And what did you love about studying with her?
I loved her style. I mean, she was very nurturing and inspiring as a teacher, but she really pushed her students, and she was very into having healthy habits and um, playing without tension. And I think, especially starting in group class in school, I'm glad I did it because that's what got me into it. But it's hard to be set up 100% correctly coming from that environment. So I remember her just having these mantras of no squeezing with the thumb, and she would put a grape behind my thumb so I didn't squish the grape. And she would say hanging from the window ledge on your fingers. And it was also just a really great community. She had so many students, and we all really became friends. It was like this cello community in Fairfield County where I grew up.
And so, do you feel that learning the physical awareness aspect of playing cello growing up, do you feel that that's informed your teaching?
Yeah, so actually, I know I didn't mention this earlier in our conversation, but I've personally had a lot of struggles with tension and tendonitis through my career. Actually, I'm only now kind of thinking it was actually when I when I left that teacher that I started having the issues. I think not at any fault to my new teacher, but I think it was just because I was suddenly my schedule became so ramped up. I also went to a very intense music festival to prepare for college auditions where we were practicing all day. And so I think just my body wasn't used to just playing all the time all of a sudden. I'm also a rather petite person. I have very small hands. So I would think that's probably a part of it as well. It's always kind of hard to know. Yeah, I mean, I think just the fear of that happening to somebody else has been a real drive for me. And the other reality is, healthy playing and balanced playing also sounds the best.
Tell us about your trio. You have a wonderful trio that performed at Holy Names it's been a year,
Mhm.
actually almost
I
exactly,
think exactly.
October 18th.
Might be today, last year.
Yeah, that was a wonderful concert. So tell us about how you got together.
I joined my trio, which is called Curium, in 2018. And the trio had been preformed for a year before I joined. So it's based in the Bay Area, and it's a piano trio of cello, violin, and piano. So we do play standard piano trio repertoire like Beethoven, Brahms, Mendelssohn, but we also focus on featuring and discovering music by female composers who are even today still underrepresented comparatively speaking, to male composers in classical music. So we try to feature composers of both the past and the present. So that the concert that you mentioned was a collaboration with a composer collective called Helia Music Collective, based in San Francisco. And they aim also to feature composers who are female. So they're on the composer end, we're on the musician end. So we did a collaboration with them, which was a commissioning project. So we had 3 trios written for our group, which premiered at Holy Names, and they were by 3 Bay Area female composers. And then we also played piece by Jennifer Higdon, who's a living composer, and Germaine Taillefer, who was of the Impressionist era of music. She was a French composer, and the theme was color through music.
How much do you guys practice?
Well, it's certainly been affected by the current state of the world. Pre-COVID, We would try to meet at least twice a week, but when we had a concert coming up, it would be, as much as we can. We're all teachers and we're all busy outside of our group as well. So it was always kind of a balancing act with that. We wish we could practice, every single day. But we did also over the summer as well, we've done some intensive retreat like settings where we've rehearsed more often. And we're actually recording and releasing an album in 2021. So we'll be planning on having a more intensive period of rehearsing in the new year leading up to recording that album.
What do you love about teaching?
It's hard to narrow it down to one thing. I love the personal connections we can make with teaching. I think this relates back to earlier that something I really love about music is how it can be such an artistic but also social experience. So I love the relationships that we develop with students and families and how every student is so different, and just the process of discovering how we can tailor the process to each student and learn about their different personalities and learning styles. And one thing I really love too, as we were talking about, is student recitals and milestones. It's just such a different experience when they're just, practicing in that more solitary environment, or it's just the two of us in the lesson, but then having recitals where parents and families and grandparents can all watch and just to see how proud of themselves they are. That's, just really thrilling and motivating for them.
What are some things that you find most challenging about teaching with or without COVID?
One thing I find challenging, particularly with the cello, is setting up the cello with a student for the first time. It's particularly challenging online just because it's not exactly the same for each person, and it depends on the length of the body of the instrument and the particular child or adult as well. And so I think both the student and the teacher have to have a lot of patience just getting through that period where you find the perfect spot.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
I love going on hikes or walks in nature, and that's something that's amazing about living in California. I had previously been in Ohio, and Ohio's beautiful in the warm months, but you can't really experience nature in the winter too much. I've also recently started paddle boarding a little bit, and that's been fun as well. So I think just anything outdoorsy. I really like listening to podcasts and audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then just like everyone watching movies and
Yeah.
things like that.
Well, it's been really fun to talk with you.
Yes, you too. Thank you for inviting me.